All right, we're gonna try this again because it seemed like my internet apparently had an issue. So anyways, we are here today talking about thriving on a Thursday, right? And how to be able to help our kiddos continue to maneuver with getting back to school and all that fun stuff, with how to be able to support them, mind, body, soul, spirit, and be able to just, meet their needs, as many of y'all's kiddos have actually officially started this week. Some don't start back up until Monday, but they've got lots of different needs, right? So we're going to keep this really short today so that you can keep, going on with your day and continue to thrive. But as parents, we can help our kiddos with all the different challenges that they will be addressing and dealing with throughout this year. So one of the things to think about is where the mind goes, so goes the heart. And there's some really great scriptures that can support that particular thought, that mind thought. So I would love to see everybody down below be able to share and post their favorite scripture that supports that exact mind thought, that thinking of where the mind goes, so goes the heart. There is an actual scripture that says those specific words in the lines, but then there's also some that are of variations. So let's see how many different biblical scriptures we can get put down below in the comments to encourage each other on how to be able to encourage our kiddos with their minds, with their development and their supporting of their mind, body, soul, spirit, health, and journey, right? So what are different ways to be able to get through to our kiddos when they're having a challenge, a challenge with either a teacher or another student, a friend, stuff like that? We need to be able to hear what they're saying, but they need to be able to also hear what we're saying, right? And one of the great ways to be able to hear what our kiddos are saying is to understand their love language. And today I'm going to be talking about lots of different resources and books and how to be able to feed their mind as well as our own minds. So I know that with Facebook Live things are kind of backwards, but you can still get the gist. So one of my favorite books is the 5 Love Languages, and there's multiple different 5 love language books within the series. There's the original one that's for couples, but this one is for teenagers. There's also one for kiddos, and I have been in love with reading the 5 love languages since before my daughter was born, so that's more than 15 years ago, that I fell in love with reading about the 5 love languages. Because the more we understand how we hear and receive love and to speak our love, then the more we're able to understand others as well. We're able to recognize those languages within our children and in our family members, so that we can make sure that we are filling up that love tank. So I really encourage anybody who's not read The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman to definitely check it out. You can even go online. There's some really fun quizzes. My daughter had a blast doing the quiz. I already knew what her love language was, but she wanted to do it this summer, and she even had one of her friends do it, and it was lots of fun. So getting to be able to know their love language and being able to meet it is really helpful and supportive for them, so that when they're talking to you, you can see where their love language may or may not be being filled, as well as you know how to be able to speak in their love language, so that they'll hear the suggestions and the advice that you are giving to them. We need to also empower our kiddos on how beautifully and wonderfully made they are. And a great way to do that is to learn together as a family TOB, which is Theology of the Body. There are so many great ways to access Theology of the Body these days that there's resources like an organization called Tobit that is out of Dallas, Fort Worth, I think. You can just go online, Google www.tobet.org or com, but I mean, once you start seeing that it's talking about Theology of the Body, you're not going to miss it. What I really like about Tobit is that they now they have lots of resources for the little itty bitties, even storybooks, to help them to be able to just start really understanding how beautifully and wonderfully made they are, and to be able to understand the beauty of how God created us and our sexuality, and just they're beautifully illustrated and done. And then of course there is lots of other resources, other organizations like Ascension Press. They have different study groups. There's also anything by Christopher West. He has a whole gamut of explaining theology of the body, whether it's for young adults, married, whether you're an old hat at understanding theology of the body and doing a more in-depth kind of studies or books, or there's the introductory book to it. Doing a side note, the very first time I heard about theology of the body, or I read about theology of the body, was about 16 years ago. So it was before my daughter was born. So it was way before I was even pregnant with her. So probably about 16 years ago. And it was the very first writing of theology of the body that was explaining what St. Pope John Paul II had written about theology of the body. And so it was Christopher West's very first explanation, or digging in and trying to dissect theology of the body for us to be able to understand this very theological, writings that St. Pope John Paul II wrote. And it was still extremely lofty, but I fell so much in love with it resonating, of understanding how beautifully and wonderfully made we were, that it stuck with me. And I've been so grateful to watch all these other amazing people like Christopher West, continuing to put out even more materials out there other than just his first book. And then the Tobit group, there's the group there in Amarillo that is the BOSS group, BOHS, through the Diocese of Amarillo, headed up with Stephanie Frosto and her team, with doing lots of TOB stuff. And Ascension Press having lots of different programs out there that you can, get books as well as study programs with DVDs to make it just really digestible. And then also Jason and Christina Everett, they have lots of really great programs that are talking about theology of the body, and it may not necessarily be, you might not hear specifically theology of the body, but it is all about how beautifully and wonderfully made we are. So those are all great resources. And why is that important, you might ask? Because the more we understand our mind, body, soul, spirit journey, the more we understand that when we're learning about the theology of the body, learning about how beautifully and wonderfully made we are, we're able to see that it's all connected, and that we can't separate our mind from our spirit. We can't separate our body from our spirit. And so, we need to feed it with good information, and we need to help our kiddos feed their minds with great information to be able to learn about who they are and how wonderfully made they are, so that they can be empowered. All right, so we need to also empower them, learning on how to be able to take care of their physical body through good, healthy snack and food choices, right? So that they can be able to get into the kitchen and just to be able to, nourish themselves well. And something that you can do is, at the end of the day when they come home from school, is rather than going and picking up something from a fast food place or a snack bar, hang out in the kitchen and visit. It's a great place to have that mind, body, soul, spirit connection in the kitchen while you're making a snack, a wholesome, biblical-based snack. Because you think about it, we didn't have lots of complicated ways to cook and prepare foods in the Bible, right? So, get back to the basics. Get back to just it being as simple as cutting up an apple and making smiley faces with